It is Monday morning here at the farmhouse, and that means that I have no groceries, a neglected sourdough starter, laundry that's piling up, and a house that needs some major attention. Join me as I take you through what homemaking looks like for this homestead, homeschool mother of 7. All right, the current situation is that nothing is thawed in the refrigerator. The sourdough starter isn't fed. We were out of the house all weekend because we had vacation Bible school at church. It was my sister's baby shower. I also have big plans for the week. I have some friends coming in town. I want to bake some things for my family and for them. I need to address the refrigerator, which is a major Monday morning task, so we will talk more about that in a bit. So many things to address. When I don't have a plan for breakfast, my favorite go-to option is always a Dutch baby pancake because I can get it in the oven while I do other things around the house. So it's perfect for a Monday morning. Now, this particular Monday morning, I looked in the fridge and realized that I don't have any butter. Now, I have gotten in the habit of having a grocery order on Monday mornings. Instead of having a list, we just add stuff all throughout the week, and then we press order somewhere around Saturday or Sunday for the 8 to 9 slot on Monday morning. So butter is in the order because I'm not getting enough cream to really keep up with the amount of butter that our family likes to use. This is for a combination of reasons. One is that we really love to bake. I also bake for a living with my blog, farmhouseonboone.com. So we use a lot of butter. We do a lot of baking, and we're just not getting quite enough cream for that, but I do have enough to make some butter for this morning's Dutch baby pancake. And I'm gonna be making it with einkorn. This is what I like to do if it's not sourdough. I typically will do einkorn, and what's so great about this is it's memorized. I can do it so fast. I do 3 cups of einkorn flour, 2 cups of milk, 1/4 cup of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon salt, a dozen eggs. Am I missing anything? I think that's everything. And then I just put some butter on a skillet and get it really, really hot, and then add in the batter or dough or whatever you want to call it that I have blended with an immersion blender. I do like to use the immersion blender as opposed to the whisk to bring the einkorn egg mixture all together. Normally, whenever I make butter, I like to rinse it with water to make sure all the buttermilk is out. That helps for long-term storage. It only goes sour if there's milk in it. If it's straight fat, it will keep for a really, really long time. But I knew that today we could use this quantity of butter very easily between what goes in the skillets and then topping it with butter. This actually is kind of a game changer to be using butter fresh that you don't squeeze the buttermilk out of, or I squeezed it out a little bit, but I did not rinse it, because it was very soft and spreadable. Now I realized that's mostly because it just didn't go in the fridge, but it had a sweeter taste to it. I suspect that's just the taste of the buttermilk. I think that's what I'm gonna do going forward. If I make a small quantity of butter that we plan to just use for whatever breakfast or anything that butter's good on, I'm just not gonna rinse the buttermilk out and use it up right away. After hanging out with my friends, because of course I'm recording these voiceovers later, there was a toaster at the Airbnb, and I know you guys are like, big revolutionary thing, a toaster. I just always use my cast iron skillet to toast bread because I just put some butter in it, but man, toasters are so great. So I ordered a toaster because it really transforms day-old sourdough bread into something not just edible, but delicious. I want to take a break from my homemaking to tell you about today's sponsor, Birch Living. Birch has their 4th of July sale running right now, so you can get 25% off your order. You can check that out in the description below. Birch makes natural and organic sleep and mattress products. Their non-toxic mattresses are crafted with organic and natural materials that are sustainably sourced. We have had 3 Birch mattresses for a couple of years now. We have the Luxe mattress in our guest room, and then I also purchased 2 twin mattresses for the boys' room. I love knowing that with all of the off-gassing that can happen in the conventional production of mattresses, I'm avoiding that whenever I choose Birch. I take a lot of care in my home to source foods and body products that are organic and good for us, and so I didn't want to neglect the very space that we spend 1/3 of our lives. For our kids, it's even more than that. Unlike synthetic mattresses, the wool in these mattresses make it hypoallergenic. The Birch Luxe Natural Mattress is a premium upgrade to their original well-loved Birch Natural mattress. It's comprised of 8 different layers of organic cashmere, organic wool, organic cotton, and 100% natural latex. It also has an added quilted organic cotton pillow Euro top. Even when choosing organic, you want to know that the mattress you're sleeping on is going to be comfortable. With your Birch mattress, you get a 100-night sleep trial and a 25-year warranty. I love my Birch mattress, and I think that you would too. If you're looking for a new bed, check out Birch Living. Their 4th of July sale is running now, so it's the perfect time to upgrade your sleep with 25% off a Birch mattress plus 2 free pillows. The link below, or go to birchliving.com/farmhouse to find out more about this limited time offer. Monday morning means that there is nothing thawing in the refrigerator. It is typically my goal to get a bunch of meat in my 9x13 dish at the beginning of the week, let it thaw or thaw slowly, use the quick to thaw cuts earlier in the week, and then by the end of the week, it's gone. And that's how I like it, because we do a lot of things with family on Saturdays and Sundays. Sometimes we need a meal and I'll need to get something out, throw it in some hot water so that it'll thaw really quick. But a lot of times it's actually pretty nice to just start fresh and address the entire refrigerator on Monday morning. So this means getting meat thawing, feeding the sourdough starter for a week of making bread and other sourdough dishes, whatever that might be. And then also going through the fridge and figuring out what random things I have in there that need to be used up because they're either getting close to past their prime or there's leftovers that need to get used up. So that's something I'm gonna do after I have my coffee and breakfast. We're gonna get more into that, but I did wanna get the starter fed right away and the meat thawing right away because we have lunch too that we have to have. So I will leave a little bit of meat out of the refrigerator so that I can actually have it for lunch to thaw it really fast. I think I'm gonna do steaks today. Now I know it's not recommended to do that. My mom always did it. I've always done it. And so I'm very comfortable letting meat thaw at room temperature for a few hours and eating it for lunch. But I will just go ahead and put my little disclaimer in that you are supposed to thaw meat technically at fridge temp. Again, I don't do that. Well, I do that, but if it's in a pinch, I definitely will leave it out for, morning chores and whatever else in the morning, so that way we have something for lunch. This morning I am giving my cow her cup of alfalfa pellets, barley, and oats, which I get from Azure Standard Organic for our Monday morning milking time. The boys are filling waters for the other animals, and the cow are filling up their water tanks, and then also bringing in the groceries in their wagon. It's also the kids' job on Monday morning to grab all of the trash cans around the house, get them in the blue trash can, and bring it out to the road, because Monday morning happens to be trash pickup time, which is very convenient for a fresh restart. I love Mondays for that. It's a team effort around here. There's a lot to do, and we all work together. All right, phase 1 of addressing the refrigerator. We have some tomatoes in here. I got them for some recipe testing for the blog. They're not actually ripe yet, so they're not from our garden. Soon we'll be having so many tomatoes, it'll just be crazy to me that I ever bought tomatoes, but they do need to be used, so I'm gonna make them into some kind of pasta sauce. I also have some broth in the fridge, so I'm pulling out the things that I plan to use this morning, all the leftovers and random vegetables and broth and whatnot that we need to use up before restocking the fridge. Now there are a few things in my grocery haul this week that are a little different because I have friends coming in town. I did get a lot of cheddar cheese because my cheese just is not aged enough yet. I have so much cheese, but we tried a couple different wheels and the flavor is just not there yet. And so I've been encouraged by other cheesemakers that you just need to give it more time to age. So we're gonna go with that. I'm not gonna open any more wheels, and I'm just going to embrace it and buy cheese, even though I felt like I have so much milk, how could I buy cheese? Well, we need cheese, we love cheese, and it's not ready. I also have a huge Azure Standard order coming next week. So there are a few things that I would normally buy larger quantities of that I'm not going to, because I know that we're gonna be getting bulk of them next week. We also have a fridge full of milk tons of herbs in the garden and a freezer full of meat. So I'm basing the grocery items that I purchased off a lot of those factors. This changes very much throughout the year with what's available, with what's going on. But this is a look at what we're getting right now in this current season. Another big factor of addressing the refrigerator for a homestead family is addressing the milk situation. I had an Instant Pot full of yogurt in the fridge. I'm going to reduce that down by straining off some of the whey so that my kids will eat it in bowls better. And then I'm going to get some more yogurt going with all of the oldest milk. I like to rearrange all the milk, especially on a Monday morning, so that the freshest milk is in the back of the fridge. We will reach for the older milk. I like to stay on top of my dairy so that no milk is ever in there that's more than 4 or 5 days old. This just takes a lot of shuffling because when you come in for milking time, sometimes you don't really want to shuffle the whole fridge around, so I try to address it at certain points throughout the week, and Monday's a great time to do that. I am getting some risotto going, and I had a couple of random bags of Brussels sprouts. Again, I'm trying to clear out the veggies before adding in any new veggies, so I set those out on the countertop before stocking my groceries so we could make those for lunch. A lot of times, what I'm making just depends on what I have and what I need to use up more than a meal plan. Risotto is our favorite thing to make when we have a lot of broth, especially in the summer, because you're not really in the mood for a soup on a hot summer day, but risotto uses up a significant quantity of broth if you make it the way that we like to make it. So you get all that broth, but without having to sit down to a hot bowl of soup. So what we do is we saute up an onion, we add in the rice, stir that all around with some butter, and then we get some broth hot in another pot and then slowly add it and stir. So if you constantly stir and you constantly slowly add in broth with the lid off, the evaporation and the stirring, it really makes for a creamy, delicious risotto. Now, ideally, you also add in some white wine. It makes it taste so delicious, but I've been really bad about stocking that lately. I did, after this day, place an order for some Dry Farms wine because I like to have it, but I just canceled the subscription a while ago, and anyways, I want to have it for my cooking pursuits again. I'm also getting going a pasta sauce with the tomatoes that were in the fridge. Just going to dice them with some onions and fresh garlic and let them simmer on the back of the stove. We'll probably have something with that dinner. If you have any kids that really like to help you in the kitchen, if they're a little older and you're not worried about them burning themselves, risotto is a really great thing for them because, again, it tastes creamier if there's a lot of stirring and the broth is added very slowly. I have some kefir that's been sitting here for I don't know how many days now. So I'll just put it through the strainer and reserve the kefir grains for another batch with some raw milk. And then the kefir that was strained off, I'm making into a smoothie with some cherries and blueberries we picked a couple weeks ago and got into the freezer pretty quick because they were going bad fast. So I had kids pit the cherries and put them in a Ziploc and knew we'd use it for something like either a cherry cobbler or a smoothie. Now I'm addressing the freezer. This was a very unplanned day. It's just like, okay, what all do I got to do? And when I open the freezer, we have kind of a weird freezer design where every so often the bottom is just full of ice because of where the ice tray is. I like the sleek design of my fridge and freezer, but I can see why people like the little outside ice things so that way you don't have a bucket of ice down in the bottom. It's okay though. I'm fine with just sweeping it out every couple months whenever it drives me nuts and then taking everything out of the freezer and cleaning the bottom tray because stuff gets dripped down there. But it's actually pretty easy to clean, especially if it's a time when you're ready to restock the freezer and it's not full of a ton of stuff. During my freezer clean out time, I also found some frozen bananas that have been in there a while. I've made a commitment to myself that we're going to use up every bag of frozen bananas before buying new. I do this thing where I always get more bananas and then put them in Ziplocs and freeze them so that we don't run out. But sometimes I like to just clear it all out, even if that means that we're out of frozen bananas for a few days, so that I know that everything in there is fresh. So that's what I'm currently doing. Now I am getting out the older milk, straining off any of the creams that we can use it for coffee or butter or ice cream. It's just in such high demand cream around here. We'll use it for something. I don't love leaving it in the yogurt, although you can. It's just like too good for that, you know? So I'm putting the older jars of milk into the Instant Pot, putting it on the saute function until it heats it up. I don't measure temperatures anymore with a kitchen thermometer. I just know that if it sits on the saute function until it beeps, that it's the perfect temp. And then if it cools down enough so I can feel it and it's not super hot, that it's a good time to add in my yogurt starter. That's what I go for. While that's coming to a saute, I'm going to do some more cleaning. I'm just moving my robot vacuum around to all the places. So I put it in the kitchen and let it go in there for a while. Then I trapped it in the pantry and I pressed the button several times so that it just keeps cleaning. I add some vinegar to the bottom and I just let it keep going so that it like layers upon layers of dirt. And then I still have to go in there and wipe the grout, but probably won't be getting into all that today. Just some quick tidying, make the bed. I try to make the bed most days because it's on the main level of our house and I see it and it just makes everything feel cleaner and prettier. Now lunch is almost complete, which is just about the perfect timing. It's almost noon. I'm gonna address the front porch a bit. I don't know how all these things get moved around and need to be fluffed and tended to, but they just do. I guess that's because 9 people live here. My motto with my home and the way that I'm able to stay decently on top of keeping it clean and tidy is just by keeping it minimal. So the front porch is a couple of rocking chairs, a couple of benches. Sometimes we have sidewalk chalk and bubbles, but I try not to keep a whole lot up here. Just a few little places to set things, but I can bring it back in order very, very fast. We also did some swimming over the weekend, which is a constant sight on our front porch all summer, is towels and life jackets and mermaid tails. So I'm gonna bring those inside for our next swimming adventure. And yes, there are the very non-aesthetic fly strips all over the house this time of year. I used to just stress about kids leaving the door open and in and out and having to spend a ton of time swatting flies. And now we just embrace it and put up new fly strips like every couple of days and they work remarkably well. I no longer swat flies. I spent so much time in my old house, especially. I remember just like at 15 minutes a day, I would swat flies to try to make sure that we didn't have any. And now we just do this and it's not pretty, but I don't have to spend any time swatting flies. Since lunch is done and I have a few minutes to spare, I'm gonna get a little bit of laundry addressed, tidying up a bit. There's just a few odds and ends here and there that need to get put away. We do laundry every single day, multiple times a day. I've shared a lot about our laundry system on here before, but it's pretty simple. It's not particular, but it helps us to stay on top of it. So I'm sorting out the towels and the rags and getting those put away. And then I'm going to address the kids' bedrooms. What's funny is today is also a Monday that I'm doing this voiceover. So I shot this video last Monday. And then today I'm doing all the exact same things. And then in the afternoon time, I'm sitting here voicing over these edited clips. And I didn't really even realize till now just how much this is how Monday always looks for me. I did almost the exact same things today. Did a quick tidy up of the boys' room, make sure to bring down any dirty clothes, wash any blankets that need to be washed, put away just books and toys. We don't keep a whole lot of toys, but what we have, I like to tidy up on a Monday. I don't have this particular schedule where it's like every Monday I tidy up the boys' room, but it just ends up being the flow of how things work out here in our home. I said I wasn't going to cut into any more wheels of cheese, but we ended up doing that. I cut off a little slice and ate it. I like to do this, which is my little way of like, in case something went wrong with this cheese, at least I'm only going down. So I do that about an hour or two before I feed my whole family. That way, if we were to get sick, it would just be me. But no, we are totally fine. It's always a little uncomfortable when you start something brand new. Like, did I do this right? I have that feeling too. I'm starting to get way more confident with the whole cheese thing because we've been fine. But I wanted to put some Asiago into the risotto. I love to shred cheese into risotto. Usually I'll do a Parmesan, but Asiago was the closest thing I had to that. Again, it wasn't that flavorful, so I need to wait a little bit longer. Lunch came together very quickly after this because I already had my risotto and Brussels sprouts done. I just had to saute up some steak and then put it all together. Now, after lunch, I transition into my afternoon work time. Monday through Thursday, the afternoon nap, when we get Theo down for nap, Luke takes some boys outside. This is when I get my work done for Farmhouse on Boone and Simple Farmhouse Life, the podcast. Today happens to be a podcast day, so I get hair and makeup done because I'm recording today, like my actual face. Days where I'm not, I don't worry about that. Like today I'm just doing voiceovers. But for podcast days, I go out to the cottage and that's my little studio. So that was what the afternoon was. And then after that, I came in, answered a few emails, and then it's back to other tasks. Now, I just realized that I never did add my yogurt starter. I let it cool down very sufficiently. Now, I'm using the whey that I strained off of the yogurt this morning. You can use whey as a starter because it does contain all of the bacteria that will make yogurt turn into yogurt. Then I'm reserving some of the whey. I might get to it, I might not, but I like to at least keep it in case I end up making cheese tomorrow. I can use the whey to culture the cheese. I can also use the whey to culture another batch of yogurt. So it's nice to keep on hand, but then after about a week, I'll just put it in the compost. Monday is a great time to get a double batch of sourdough bread going. You can, of course, make it all throughout the week, feed your starter all throughout the week, or you can do it like this. Now, the reason I'm doing it like this is because I have friends coming in town and I want to have bread for them and then also for my family. So I'm getting 4 loaves of my no-knead sourdough bread, which is my favorite recipe of all, going. I could get it all in one massive bowl, but I actually don't have a bowl that large, and then it's just easier for me to work with 2 loaves per bowl, and that way I can also do an add-in. So I'm gonna do 2 loaves that are plain regular sourdough bread and then 2 that have the golden raisins in it. The process for this is really simple. If you've been following along, you're like, yes, I've seen this a million times, but you get the 3 types of flour in the bowl, which I do a combination of all-purpose and bread flour and a whole grain flour. It goes 500 grams of all-purpose, 250 of bread flour, and 200 of a whole grain flour. Mix that together and then add 650 grams of water to each of the bowls, and then add 200 grams of a bubbly and active sourdough starter to each of the bowls. So at this point, the starter was just fed this morning, I don't know, 6-ish hours ago at this point. So it's nice and bubbly and active because I put it in the warmest spot in my kitchen. If it's cold in the kitchen, it's winter, it's gonna take a little bit longer to get to that active stage, but I bend rules nonstop in this kitchen, and I've used starter that's been sitting out for 24 hours, so it's past its peak, and I've also used it at 4. As long as there's enough yeast in there, it might take longer, but it will work on the bread. This is in its ideal form right now, but I don't always do that. Then I add in 20 grams of salt into each bowl, do a quick bring it together with my hands, allow it to sit for about 30 minutes before starting the stretch and folds. Now, in the meantime, I'm heading out to the garden to grab some fresh sage, thyme, and basil to add to my sauce that's been simmering on the back of the stove. I'll give it a blend with the immersion blender and then leave the lid off, allow it to evaporate off a bit more water so that it'll make a nice pizza sauce, because I've decided that's what we're gonna do for dinner. Now, I set my timer for about every 30 minutes to do stretch and folds. I don't always set a timer, but I find that I get the bread making process done a lot faster if I do, because I end up forgetting and then I don't have enough stretch and folds done by the time I went to rice. So anyways, it's just easier for me to keep remembering to go over there and do the stretch and fold. I do about every 20 to 30 minutes, and I like to do 5 or 6 stretch and folds. There's a whole specific layout outline on my channel. I have a whole tutorial on how to make this bread that's very specific, and I also have that over on the Farmhouse on Boom blog. But just know that personally, I do a very stripped down version for our daily bread, so I don't have to get too particular. Getting some mozzarella going alongside my bread here. This is Kate from Venison for Dinner's stripped down mozzarella tutorial. So it's the same measurements that I normally do for mozzarella, which is just adding 1.5 teaspoons of citric acid to a gallon of milk, bringing that up to 95 to 100 degrees, then adding in 1/4 teaspoon of animal rennet. Now I dilute both of those in 1/4 cup of water first. And then instead of cutting the curds, you first let it sit for 10 minutes to let the curds firm up, and then you just stir them and heat it and let the stretching of the mozzarella happen on the back of a spoon, as opposed to dunking it in and stretching it. It sounds just too easy to work, but it totally works, and it saves a couple of steps. Once I get that ball of mozzarella cheese out, I leave the whey on the stove, add a bunch of salt to it, and then let it cook a bit more so I can strain off some ricotta cheese for a future use. I was hoping it'd be ricotta-y enough for this pizza, but it wasn't. It had to go back on and cook a little bit longer. I have to cook it a good long while in order for it to be ricotta. We're doing my easy sourdough pizza. The reason that we're doing this tonight is because, again, it's Monday. I don't have anything thought out. All I had was a couple of steaks that I thought out really fast on the countertop. So pizza's a really good thing for those moments, as long as you have a bunch of sourdough starter, which I fed a ton of extra this morning so that I would have it for this evening in order to make up a real quick meal of crust, sauce, and cheese. We also had a bit of salami, so we threw that on top as well. I'm performing the last set of stretch and folds on both of these double batches of bread. I want you to note how much the gluten has developed at this point. It starts off not that stretchy, and then by the last one, you can stretch it super high. That's when you know it's ready to set and do the bulk ferment. My second daughter talked me into a pie this evening. We had a little trouble with our crust this time, so I'm helping her finish that up and get it in the oven with some pie weights. We always like to do a cleanup before we serve dinner or lunch. Any meal really, we clean up as we go, and then it's our big goal to only have the plates and cups during the meal so that we have all of the prep dishes done and it makes for a smooth transition into bedtime. My son got some lettuce starts earlier this year at the farmer's market, so I had to involve him for sure in picking it and serving it. He was really excited because he knows that it's his lettuce. So that'll be a perfect little addition to our pizza and salad and homemade honey mustard dressing. Back to the laundry room. Again, I did not plan this video out. It's just like, I'm gonna take this camera around and show what a Monday looks like here. Lots of swapping out laundry. We have 2 baskets on top of the dryer, one's for kids' clothes, one's for Luke and me and Theo since he's in our room. We separate out the rags. There's cow rags that go in a certain spot. They actually stay in the bathroom laundry room area. And then the regular rags that come in here, swimsuits, socks, all of that stuff has a little spot. And then the baskets aren't that full, so we don't really have to put away laundry that often. We end up living out of the baskets more often than not. In fact, whenever we put the laundry away, sometimes they get so full that I'm like, all right, it's time to put laundry away, everybody. I actually kind of miss it because then that means I have to go get kids' clothes as opposed to just dressing them right in the laundry room. Johanna made a coconut cream pie. Instead of doing a meringue, which we often do, she did whipped cream on top. So she made a custard, put that in the pie crust after it was baked, added on whipped cream, and then topped it with some toasted coconut. It was very delicious. Everyone loved it. It went way too quickly. I want to impress my friends with some sourdough bagels. They ended up loving them. It was another reason why I decided that I definitely needed a toaster, because sourdough bagels toasted are way better than when they're not toasted. Who would have known that I really needed a toaster this bad? I learned that. So this is really easy because you just add the ingredients to the mixer, let it sit overnight, and then the next day, I'm laughing because I'm about to tell you about my upcoming merch. The next day after it rises, all you do is you shape, rise, boil, bake. The reason I'm laughing is because one of my friends, I was telling her about the process of making bagels. I was like, oh, it's so easy. You just add the stuff to the mixer the night before, let it sit all night, and in the morning you shape, rise, boil, bake. And she's like, that's your merch. You need a t-shirt that has that. I'm not actually going to have that. I think if I ever did merch, that would probably be pretty cute, but it's not on the horizon right now. I'm just doing other things, blogging, YouTubing. But if I ever had merch, I think a t-shirt that said shape, rise, boil, bake with a little bagel on it would be such a cool merch idea. We came in from evening milking. Luke and I do that together, so it's like a 15-minute process, and then he puts the cow back and cleans up outside and does little things, but I come in and strain the milk, so it's a very short process for me. And then I got my bread that has been rising for the last 3-4 hours, almost doubled, to a little pre-shape. So I divide it into the 4 loaves, allow it to sit out for about 10-15 minutes to develop a skin on top. This prevents it from sticking to the tea towels. And then while it's doing that, I'm prepping everything. So I'm getting 4 tea towel, lightly floured, lined baskets. 2 are official Banneton baskets. That's what they're for. And then 2 are just some baskets that I keep in my kitchen. I have them hanging on hooks in the pantry. That they aren't really Banneton baskets, but they work perfectly as Banneton baskets. And then I'm going to, after they've sat for like 10-15 minutes with the pre-shape, I'm gonna give an official shape, which I used to not realize like what the point of this was. The point is it provides tension, which allows the dough to have this shape and oven spring. So it's really a very important step, but it's very simple. After I flour and shape each loaf, I get them into the Banneton baskets. Then I put a plastic bag around them. I just use grocery bags that I keep. This makes it just a really easy thing as opposed to trying to fit this in like a Ziploc bag or something, which you really can't do. And then I get it in the fridge overnight. Now the cool thing is if you didn't want to bake all of these the next day, you don't have to. You can bake them all throughout the week. The refrigerator slows the process down enough that you don't have to bake them all at once. Now I actually did because I had stuff going on this week, so I needed the bread made, but oftentimes I'll just leave them in and bake them all throughout the week. I like to dust the top with flour so that my scoring pattern stands out and looks pretty. Then I put it in my preheated cast iron Dutch oven with the lid on for about 20-25 minutes, and then the lid off for about 20 or 25 minutes. The first 20 minutes is enclosed in that Dutch oven, so it's steamy and it'll give it that oven spring, which means that it goes from being sometimes kind of flat to poofy and the design popping out. And then the second half without the lid is for browning. You can really see when the dough is side by side just how much it puffs up in the oven. So if you've ever made sourdough bread and plop it out of the Banneton basket and you're discouraged thinking it's gonna be so flat, it does rise so much during the baking process. Now I just need to shape, rise, boil, bake those bagels. Between the boil and the bake, I'm gonna sprinkle them with a bit of everything but the bagel seasoning just to impart some more flavor. I ran out of my favorite large batch of that, which I normally just get from Thrive Market, so I made up some with some random stuff I had. I had poppy seeds and sesame seeds, flaky salt. I'm trying to remember what else I put in it. But once that's gone, I'm gonna get me another batch of this. I'm realizing that I forgot to get some final shots of these bagels, but I promise they were very beautiful and browned, and everyone really, really loved them. Well, I hope that you enjoyed a peek into our Monday all day and then a little peek of Tuesday morning to see how I finished off the Monday stuff. If you're brand new to my channel and you love homemaking inspiration, I'd love it if you subscribed. Thank you so much for stopping by our farmhouse.